I'm down in the garden today on a nice Saturday morning, which is going to turn out to be a very hot Saturday day. And I'm going to be picking some basil this morning to make some pesto. Right now you can see I have some cilantro over here that has gone to seed and will be turned into coriander. And then down here we have some dill, those little things that kind of look like carrots. And next to the dill is some marjoram, but right here is all my basil. So in harvesting the basil, you just don't pull it out of the ground, but you cut it about 2 inches off the ground and leave some leaves behind for the next batch. Now, one of the problems with making pesto is I normally freeze it, but pesto has a lot of olive oil in it, and as everyone knows from freeze drying, oils do not work well in freeze drying. So what I'm going to try doing is, instead of using oil, I'm going to use water to pack it together, freeze dry it, and then when I bring it back, I'm going to add the oil at that point. So I have a pretty good amount of basil. All of this is going to be cut down and probably turned into pesto, or just freeze dry it and store it. Now with basil, wherever it's cut, so you can see all the cut marks right here, 2 shoots will come for each cut mark. So this is the first time this basil has been harvested. So in the weeks to come, all this will grow up again, and I'll have twice as many shoots from what I had originally. Okay, all the basil has been harvested. I have 2 large bags full of basil. So I'm going to take them up to the house and take the leaves off the stem. So I'm back from the garden, and what we're going to be doing today is making pesto. So this is all my basil. Actually, this is not all of it, if we really want to get ridiculous. This is all the basil I picked today. So what we need to go through, we need to go and pick all the leaves from the basil, and that's what we're going to be doing next, picking the leaves and then washing the leaves. Once the leaves are all separated, we want to wash them, get all the bugs and any dirt and such off of them. Once the leaves are rinsed, we're going to load those into a food processor, and we're going to reduce these down into a paste. Now to this, I'm going to add 1 cup of walnuts. Now generally speaking, pesto is supposed to be made with pine nuts, but pine nuts are hard to find, they're expensive, and walnuts, I think, do as better or a better job. 1 cup of Parmesan cheese, 1 clove garlic. In this case, I'm using freshly minced garlic. ½ teaspoon salt, and a ¼ teaspoon pepper. And we're going to mix all this up. Now, one thing I'm not adding to this is I'm not adding any olive oil. As everyone knows, olive oil or any oil, grease, does not do well in freeze drying. So I'm going to make this pesto without any olive oil. I'm going to freeze dry it, I'm going to package it, and then if I need to, when I reconstitute it, well, not if I need to, but when I reconstitute the pesto, that's when I'm going to add my olive oil. So that's, you could maybe say this is like a dry pesto, so to speak, because I'm not going to be putting the oil in it at this time. Now, because I'm not putting any olive oil in here, I'm going to add some extra water just to help mix and bind this all together. So I'm just putting enough water in this, just so as I'm mixing, you can see it turn. Once it starts turning, it pretty much tells me it's mixing well. And that would be the same thing if I were to put the olive oil in it. Once the basil is reduced, you'll have something almost like a green mess, but that's what we want. And we're going to probably have to do several batches of this to fill up a Harvest Right tray. To fill the tray completely, I had to make a double batch of pesto. And we'll put this in the freezer to pre-freeze it. Then on into the freeze dryer it will go. You can see a little bit of difference in the color between the two batches, because of oxidation. That's not a problem. Once this gets done, it'll be quite dark. Okay, so that is pesto without olive oil. Now for kicks and giggles, before I do put this into the freezer, I'm going to weigh this. So altogether, including the tray, we're at 2206 grams, 2,206 grams. Now it's going in the freezer. Okay, this is our pesto I put into the freezer yesterday, and the weight on it was 2,206 grams. So we're going to go ahead and weigh it now. And we're coming out at 2173 grams. So we're going to go ahead and put this in the freeze dryer and freeze dry it. Just finished up the freeze dryer. I have the pesto here. See, we started at 2173. And we finished up at 1,127 grams. So that's the pesto. Now this is the pesto that I did without any olive oil. So when I reconstitute this with water, I'll also add the olive oil at that time. This is the pesto I did. Now normally when you make pesto, you make it with olive oil. But I didn't put any olive oil in my pesto because, as we all know, oils and greases do not freeze dry well. So there's two things I need to do with this. Not only do I need to reconstitute this back with water, but I also have to be able to add the olive oil with it to bring it back to the full body flavor of pesto. So I have some hot water here. I think hot water reconstitutes food a lot better than cold water. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring this back just to the point where it wants to bind together. And it's almost to that point right Now my pesto I made with walnuts rather than pine nuts, because to get pine nuts, they're somewhat seasonal and they're expensive, but I think it tastes just as good, perhaps if not better, with walnuts. Okay, so this is about the consistency of the pesto when I first made it. So now with that, what we're going to do, we're going to add the olive oil. And the nice thing about the pesto, if you add too much olive oil, that's not a problem, because when you mix your pasta in with the pesto, any extra olive oil is just going to transfer to the pasta. So even though this could be a sloppy mess because of the olive oil, that's not a problem, because your pasta will take care of everything else. I don't think you can put too much olive oil in pesto. I think it would be pretty difficult to do that. So this looks like about the consistency to put it in with my pasta. Oh, and that's good. This tastes just like fresh pesto. Wow, I'm very happy with this. We left the olive oil out, but I tell you, this is absolutely wonderful. Freeze-dried pesto. So we're going to be having this with dinner tonight. In fact, tonight's dinner is all going to be freeze-dried. We have freeze-dried pesto, we have freeze-dried vegetables, we have freeze-dried Wiener Schnitzel, we got pasta. Well, that's not freeze-dried, but it's dried. And then for dessert, I'm making creme brulee from freeze-dried egg yolks. So it's a freeze-dried dinner tonight. Okay, so here we go. We have a gluten-free meal that's also freeze-dried. So we have the pesto. The pesto was freeze-dried. We have the asparagus. The asparagus was freeze-dried. This is topped off with some Parmesan. Of course, the lemons are not freeze-dried, but we have the Wiener Schnitzel, which was freeze-dried and brought back. So we'll have to see how it tastes. Try the Wiener Schnitzel here. That is really good, except I forgot to put the lemon on it. Put a seed there. Crispy, very good. Pesto was excellent. Oh, asparagus came out better than I expected. This is a great meal. Yeah, it was good.